There you go. Welcome. Welcome to everybody. I'm just going to kick off quick framing for today. Welcome to this session with our special guest, Neil Mullarkey. It's going to be in conversation with Claire today. As usual, look, we have the chat function. So if you've got any questions, anything you're stimulated by, any words of wisdom, please use the chat. And kind of how we're going to frame this session today. Look, I've been to the Comedy Store many, many times in my life. And I remember when I used to go maybe 20 years ago and watch the Comedy Store players on a Sunday night. First of all, when I was watching that show, what I really saw, what I thought I saw was six people mucking about and playing around on stage. And but actually 20 years later, I look at that show in a completely different way, because it turns out when you start to really understand the skills and the magic of what's happening in front of you, that you're watching some professional people demonstrate skills around things like the things that we love, right? Like letting go, like being present. We have people who are creating. This is creativity happening right in front of you. Listening, dancing in the moment. Don't we love that phrase as coaches? We're all going to dance in the moment. What the heck is that? Well, it's happening in front of you. Being vulnerable, being courageous, having conviction, building trust, communication, relationships. These incredible skills are all on show in front of you, and offered up in this beautifully sort of life-affirming comedic performance. So the world of comedy has a lot to offer. The world's outside of comedy. I know many of you have seen comedy. So it's an absolute delight to welcome Neil Mullarkey, who was co-founder actually of the Comedy Store Players, which is in the Guinness Book of Records as the world's longest running comedy troupe. So hurrah for that. And is still running. And if you haven't been, we'll be plugging this several times today. Make sure you go and see Neil and the Comedy Store Players as many times as you possibly can. And I've actually taken clients to the show to really see those skills evidenced in front of you. So Neil, well, how are we going to introduce Neil? We could spend half an hour introducing Neil, but we're going to cut to the chase. Neil went to Cambridge, did his MA in economics, social and political science. He's a super smart man. Was president of the Footlights at Cambridge. Has spent a lot of his life in comedy, setting up the Comedy Store Players. Is an actor, a comedy performer, a comedy improvisation performer. He's written 4 books. His latest one we will be talking about today. In the moment, you've written 4 books. Is that correct? And in his professional life, he's sought after as a keynote speaker, a trainer, and a coach. And I've seen Neil work in many organizational settings. And if you go to some of the links and the websites that we'll send you, you'll see accolades from the likes of people like Mike Myers and Eddie Izzard, right through to all sorts of professors and leaders in business. So it's an absolute delight to have, Neil, you here today. And we framed this conversation around leadership and uncertainty. And I'm going to really pass over to Claire to lead the conversation. Just to say a huge thank you to you, Neil, for being here, and to all of you in the audience for turning up as well.
Thank you for having me. And yes, hello, Lynn. Lynn remembers we did work with HSBC, and I also see Samantha as well. I've done some work with you lately. So who else have I worked with or not? So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Claire, you've got some questions. Who knows whether we'll cover any of them?
Who knows? We will be improvising. Listen, it's great to be here. And this is what Neil's book looks like. The privilege is all mine to be able to interview people who've written amazing books and to put my yellow Post-it notes all through them. In the moment, build your confidence, communication, and creativity at work. Look, it's a fabulous, really fabulous translation of the world of theatre and particularly improv to the world of business in every way. How we meet, how we collaborate, how we need to be, in uncertainty. So I'm going to start. There's a brilliant sort of section on leadership mindset. And on page 127, Neil talks about how the VUCA world is very improv. So improv and VUCA feel like they're aligned. There's improv needed. And I thought we'd just ask if it's okay with you, just Neil, for you to riff on that briefly. Why is improv, and why does improv matter in a VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world?
Thank you. Well, just to ask everyone else, does everyone know what I mean by an improv show? Give me thumbs up if you've ever seen one. Okay, so you're here. If you're not, oh, there's somebody on the phone there. Heather Barry. Oh, hello. What's going on? Goal achiever.
Ooh.
Hello. What's going on? All sorts of exciting things now. But improv is where the audience gives suggestions and the actors act it out. Actually started with a social worker, not creating theatre, in the 1920s in Chicago, trying to help children. And it was her son who said, oh, right, these exercises Mum has created could work as a form of theatre. Saturday Night Live grew out of Second City, which started in 1959. So when I heard VUCA, which is the world is volatile, we don't know where it's going to go. It's complex. Actually, there's all sorts of themes that you don't know are going on. You have certain things you don't know. If you do this, then that could happen. Unexpected consequences. Ambiguous. Definitely, it's all of those things, because when we start a scene, we might start a scene in a laundrette, we might start a scene with a husband and wife. We think it's going to be about this, and then actually something emerges from that, because we're both totally in the moment, or sometimes six of us in a team. In the moment, we don't know where it's going to go, but we trust the process above all. We know that by listening and actually quieting our own inner voice, which has taken months, if not years of training, to say, okay, the story will find us. It's not so much what do we bring, it's actually what will the story tell us. Mike Myers, who was my guru of improv, he was my first teacher and role model. And people will often say, I improvise, I extemporize, but improv is this discipline. I almost say it's like a martial art. You get to learn and you never stop learning. So people, this Sunday, what have you prepared for this Sunday? How do you prepare? I said, well, I've spent 38 years preparing. And how can you sit in that place of, we don't know what's going to happen. We are going to be part of allowing it to unfold. As Mike Myers, I was going to say, he used to say, why have the gods of improv chosen this moment to create a scene, to help us create a scene? And somebody once said to me, improv is less about making it up as finding out what's already there. And that's obviously why I think coaching has something to learn from this. So improv, we don't know where the scene's going to go. In hindsight, we can say, oh, that was a moment, that was a pivot, oh, that idea was emerging. But very often on stage, you don't know whose idea it was. At any point, you don't know where it might go. You have a rough idea because you can't help but think ahead. This is what I try to say to people. You can't empty your head completely, but most of us, our head is full of so much stuff. And when somebody doesn't know what to say in one of my improv workshops, I say it's not because they didn't know what to say. It's they didn't know which of the many ideas in their head to go with. And our notion is go with the idea that she gave you. And she's going, yeah, that's it. I'll go with your idea. Our ethos is actually follow the follower. So when we embrace a world that's volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, we actually get on stage and say, here we are. We don't know where it's going to go, rather than, oh no, we didn't make a plan. Isn't it a mistake? So what can the real world learn from that, where we absolutely enter the place of not knowing?
So in that case, then, what could a leader in an organization be doing that's kind of aligned with, you talked about over 30 years of training, and then there's the day of and the just before of. Can you tell us how do you prepare and train, and how have you trained, and how do you prepare to go on stage, maybe even if you're not feeling like being in the thick of the complexity of improv that day?
Well,
and what could leaders be doing? I
started with workshops. You do lots of exercise, which are all about listening, letting go, not judging the offer that the other person gives you or you give yourself. We treat everything as an offer. And this is both the training of the improv, but also the application in the real world. Think of listening to what are people saying. That's an offer, a gift, something to build upon, rather than I need to know how all the answers myself, have my own script prepared. And so in an improv scene, I say, good morning, doctor. And they, good morning, nurse. There you go. You've made me a doctor. I've made you a nurse. we have an offer. And in fact, there's a guy called Rob Poynton who wrote a book called Everything is an Offer. And again, this is when I did my coaching course at Ashridge, when I came across Gestalt, which is how you're feeling is an offer. Okay, I'm noticing you keep saying that thing, or the energy around that notion is this, or actually I'm feeling a bit worried and I noticed you mentioned that, rather than, you know, getting too cerebral about it, just almost allowing the information to be what happens in the moment. So the improv training is lots and lots of exercises where you just listen and you narrow down your options actually to what's just been said. How can I make that happen? In fact, how can I make their offer work rather than how can I write a whole story? And my book, I mentioned our ethos, which is how do I make the other person look good? Somebody, Stefan Stern, who used to write for the Financial Times, said, that's a radical idea. How do I make the other person look good? But if we adopted that as a leader, how do I interact with others to help them look good?
Or how do you interact so you can make their offer work? How can you interact so you can make their offer work? I love that. That seems like a great thing to really hold on to. I'm gonna apply that for the next week and see what happens in my leadership.
Very, very hard, actually, intellectually easy, but treat what the other person says as an offer on which to build. Can I make their idea work?
Yep.
And Pixar pictures, for example, lots of improv people there. Judy Dent should look at that in the chat, but Pixar, they talk about plussing, plus, which is yes and our improv motto, which is you can't critique an idea unless you have a constructive way of moving it forward. Because we all can default to, well, that's not going to work. Well, we tried it last year. Whereas we go, how could it work? Actually, if it didn't work last year, what was there and what's changed? What do we need to change to make it work? And so this yes and is the idea of, yes, I'm accepting the offer and I'm going to build on it. Now, we don't say yes and on stage, much less should we say it in real life, because Sarah's just there, the yes and yes but. And some people say, I don't want to say yes and to everything. It sounds like you're acquiescing and you have no agency. And actually, I use that word because somebody from an investment fund last year let me know, she said, I realized that listening is an act of agency. What a great way of framing it. If I listen to somebody, I can make something happen. If I yes and what they might say, I can help to work with them. And I may have to still my own inner voice, but if I create that moment, she may as well. And actually, together we might create something that both of us are responsible for, but maybe didn't come to the table with. Now, it sounds lovely and wonderful, and people say, oh, I never say but something. And actually, sometimes we know that yes, but may be necessary. Yes, but how about this? Yes, but, you know, it's the way we do it. And in fact, one of my early clients was a management consultancy. And this guy said, oh, yeah, I know what this is. You say yes and when you mean yes, but, which is kind of, it's kind of yes, and that'll never work. Yes, and it's too expensive. Yes, and I don't like you. Kind of the words yes, and are not the thing. So that's why I go back to the idea of offers. And my 5-letter acronym, the first one is listen. Listen with intent. The intention of what's been said is now data. How can I use that? Accept it. You may not agree, but that's how she said it. That's how he phrases his perspective, his feelings. Join and build, exactly, Mark. And of course, I know, and I always say to people, have you got any friends? Yeah. Do you agree with them on everything? Not necessarily. But the yes is not necessarily I agree with you, but I accept that you have a right to say that. And I am trying to work with your perception of the world. And as coaches know, you don't start with the answer. You don't start with a script. You go, what are they giving us? And they don't even know what they're giving us sometimes. The unspoken offer, and we often talk about the verbal offer, but also the non-verbal, even the energy behind an offer. We know that somebody's saying, yeah, that's great. The offer is, I'm not so sure. So the offer is essential. So that's why the book is called Everything is an Offer.
Love that.
That to me is the kind of philosophical idea, but behaviorally, it's hard to treat what people say as an offer when it doesn't quite fit what you expected.
Yes, and I guess there's lots of yes butting coming out and then realizing you can turn it into a yes and. At least I realize I do that sometimes. Just when things are tough or tight, you know, critical, I can find my way. I'm always going into the yes. I'm kind of in a yes but then if I'm doing really well that day, I can find my way into a yes and there's certain physiological things that I know I have to do. So before we go on to talk more about these lager and laser models that you've got, which are brilliant, just before we do that, is there anything specific that you do with your body, with your breath, to prepare to go on stage?
Yes, that was your question, was, you know, I've prepared 38 years, but what do I do on a Sunday?
Yeah, what do you do on a Sunday?
I don't have a strict regime, but I know my body ahead of time is saying, don't commit to too much on a Sunday. I'm fairly unsocial, actually, which is a shame because you want to have Sunday lunch with friends and family. But from 2 p.m, I'm thinking, I don't want to be talking too much.
Yeah.
And although having lunch with friends is fun, it's tiring. You're giving of yourself and you want to give yourself in the evening for those 2 hours when you're on stage. So I start sort of stepping back a bit, try and have a bath and a shave, have a snack about 5 p.m. or so. I used to go in and put on different shoes. I used to wear Chinese slippers to the show. I sometimes now still put on a different shirt. There's a kind of sense of ritual, but we have to be there for what the actors call the half in the theatre, which is 35 minutes before curtain up. So 30 minutes before beginners, which is 5 minutes before curtain up.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a strict regime other than we all have to be there on time. We chat. And I know that the tone of the show is often set by that ambiance in the dressing room. We're having a laugh, we're having a giggle, everyone's together. We do one of the games, which is telling a story. Somebody points, I was going to the shop, next one, when I saw the man with cheese. The man with cheese was actually my brother in disguise. The cheese was magical cheese or something like that. We tell a story. We always hope it's a bit rubbish because, as anybody in the theatre knows, bad dress rehearsal means good first night. So we do that, but unconsciously, perhaps now after 38 years, I'm guarding my energy, physical, mental, psychological, which is I don't want to get into a family argument. So I literally step out from the family at 5 o'clock or so. I do these things, a bath, change, even have a sleep. Being in the theatre, you get used to having a nap in the afternoon. Not many people do that. But I just know I need to tune out because I would consider myself an introvert. Which means when I'm on stage, I'm giving a lot. So I just reduce the number of social moments that I need to do. I get there early. I try and reduce any pain in terms of, will the tube be there on time? Sometimes that's fine, but things like that. Don't want to be stressed. And to be honest with you, there are times when I've thought on a Sunday, I don't want to do this. But then you get on stage, and we call Dr. Theatre, Dr. Footlights. She or he takes over and says, I'm on stage sharing this convivial community experience with the people in the audience. And I'm energized by it.
And what do you do in like the 2-3 seconds before you go on, or 30 seconds before? Anything specific?
Just try and be quiet.
Just try and be quiet.
Yeah. A lot of actors and improvisers might talk a lot. I try to be quiet. So I go and hide in the toilet for a moment. Or when we're waiting backstage, there's music and lights. Just be quiet, look and smile at people. So that's when we come, not quite on stage, but to sit at the side of the stage. But then I notice that if I'm introducing the show, my first bit, I do take a big breath. I try and put on not my happy face, but my show face, which also is your voice. So right now I'm giving you my show voice. When I have dinner tonight, just Kevin and me over a glass of sherry, maybe down by the river, I'll be talking like this. But I know that when I perform, I have to put on this energy. And so when I help other people with performance, I say, you should be tired after a presentation. If you're not, you haven't done it properly.
The heightened moment, isn't it? So, I mean, the parallels I'm making here are just, you know, as we coach leaders in a very complex world, it's always surprising that the expectation is the leader will just go from critical meeting to critical meeting, really without a preparatory mode or thought about that at any time. It's just the day has got to get done, and it can be a long day. Without that sort of expectation that one might be tired, because we're using that kind of very, you know, the listening, accepting, the process. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but a little bit more about that. But that takes a kind of energy. And as dancers going on stage, we obviously have to warm up the body more than maybe you do if you're going to do comedy work, because you're doing some very extreme things physically. But apart from warming up the body, you know, there's that sense of just getting ready, grounding and breathing, and that breath and that ability to sort of source your energy for that heightened moment. And I think that's a great gift that the performing arts in different ways gives to leaders. And as coaches, I think we could be looking out for that as a guiding principle. What are you doing in that minute before that board meeting? What are you doing in those 2 minutes or the 5 minutes? What's your equivalent of going to the bathroom and saying your prayers, or taking the
Yes.
breath and grounding yourself?
And
I'm sure many of you are doing that already, but I just think it's more critical than we think it is.
absolutely. And 1 minute isn't enough.
No.
You know, somebody once, an actor said, in a theatre piece, a play or performance, you're kind of experiencing the same amount as adrenaline as somebody in a car crash. No idea if that's true, but I like the idea that you're putting yourself under great stress. A presentation is big stress, performance is big stress.
Yeah.
But when I teach presentation skills, and let's face it, we're all giving some sort of presentation all the time. It may not be broadcasting one person, it may be conversation, but nevertheless, it's socially difficult, or socially demanding, let's say. So there's two things I was going to say. My children now, teenagers, but I remember taking them to parties, and they would come home, they'd be really tired.
Yeah.
They hadn't done much. There might be an entertainer or there might be some games, but they were tired because they were just kind of, what's happening now? What do I say? Where do I fit in this? What's my contribution? Should I step in? Should I step back? Do I want to go and get a balloon? And the other thing is, I often say to people, warm down, like any athlete. So look at swimmers. They do some land training before they get on, and they listen to music, whatever. But also many athletes have a warm down. And it's really important. When I was younger, our warm down would be we'd stay up and drink and go for a meal. Now my warm down is get home, have some period of quiet, read, relaxation, the wonderful research on the teenage mind called Nicola Morgan. You put in lager and laser here. Did you want me to talk about that?
So I do, and I'm putting up there just to prep it. But I just kind of keeping our eyes on time. I think there's the topic that we've just landed on could be a very big topic, because the levels of rigidity in people's bodies and therefore minds and emotions that I come across in leaders, and I'm studying that on my doctorate at the moment. I'm pulling together lots of research. You lose the ability to have interoception. So they're the ability to know what you need, and that you need to energize up or wind down and get yourself into recovery, and what specifically you need. That's a whole topic of conversation, and we'll come back to that one. But right now, very briefly, because we want to get to some practical, because one of my questions coming up for Neil, just to dangle the carrot, get a bit of dopamine going, is what's your favorite improv game to play with leaders and why? And let's try it. So be prepared. But before we do that, could you've already started on it, but lager and laser, can you do that in about kind of 3 minutes? We already started on listen, accept, which is the L and the A.
Good. I backed into this years ago. I knew that listen was important. Listen with intent. Accept the offer. Then give an offer. That's the yes and. Give an offer that builds on her idea, makes his idea work. Then Mike Myers used to say specific, and that wouldn't work to spell a 5-letter acronym. So I made it explore. Initially, actually, it was energy. The next letter, energy. The energy you bring to a conversation is often reflected in the energy you get out of. Start kind of like this, and you may not get as much if you really leap into it. And then I thought that was a bit theatrical, a bit lovey. And of course, now people, yourself included, talking about energy. As energy, what do we, what's the company putting our energy into? How is I, an individual, guarding my energy? But I made it explore assumptions. So good morning, doctor. Good morning, nurse. What kind of doctor? What kind of nurse? Why are they meeting today? Is there a patient? Is there something happening in the hospital? There's always something to explore. And it's very, a lot of people like the E of explore assumptions the most, which is going into any situation. I've already got a script, an idea of what I'm going to think or say or feel, what she's going to say, what they're going to do, what the client will say, what my team might focus on. And if I need to actually step back and say, well, let's explore why I was assuming that, or if that were so, how could that go? The G is give offers based on what you heard. So the yes, and it's the and bit. I'm going to the shops. Yes, and you can get some cheese. Yes, and you can make a cheese sandwich. Yes, and we'll have a picnic. Yes, and I'll bring my picnic rug. So the and is the give.
Yeah, the give.
So just briefly, and the R is to recycle. Keep coming back to. As coaches, you'll know this. What did she say before? How does that work with what was earlier on in the meeting? Oh, somebody's coming up with a good idea. How can I play that back? So recycle, I would say, but the actual improv word is reincorporate. Corp, body, bring back into the story something that's already emerged. In sitcoms, they call it a callback. So listen, accept the offers, give offers, not just kind of accept and acquiesce. It's kind of get involved there, be part of the story, give something, take a risk. Take the initiative, explore assumptions. Oh, right. I thought it was going to go that way. Oh, no, we've let it go that way. And then, if we come back to something else, and just to finish off, I do still give people a beer mat saying lager. Then in lockdown, I couldn't do that. And I thought I'd always wanted to do laser for reasons I'll tell you in a moment. The S is to send an offer. Send an offer that makes their idea work, that builds the story. Like with Pixar, I'm plussing your idea. How can I move it forward, even if it's not the way you expected? So laser, send an idea. And just finally, because I did physics A-level, a laser is based on light going in a straight line, because light can be photons, particles, individuals, but also can be a wave. And I think all of us are individual particles whilst also wanting to be a team.
Yeah.
And improv, when it's at its best, is we love the individual and we love the way they play as a team. And that, to me, if you can be both an individual and part of something bigger, your human desires are fulfilled. We want to be noticed for who we are, whilst also feeling part of something that was bigger than we could have achieved alone.
Exactly. And what I love about, so lager and laser, sorry for spelling it with a Z, not the S, that was just a typo. You would take people and give them games and exercises, and maybe maybe Lynn is bringing back memories of what you did with Neil. I don't know, but
I do.
You would take people through these processes as part of a workshop, a day, a 2-day, a leadership event. Is that right, Lynn? Did somebody want to do somebody's voice? I heard somebody's voice.
Yeah, it's Lynn. I'm so sorry I haven't got my camera on. I'm having to just multitask in the background with my mum. No, we did amazing work with Neil. We were doing cultural change, actually, and we were trying to emerge a new future on memory, and people were all sort of stuck in their own what's the word, mentality of what world looked like. And I think what Neil helped us to do was to have an improv session, which was very uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie, Neil, because we were all used to being very structured and disciplined and having our agendas and being prepared, and we didn't know what was coming. But actually what it did is it emerged what was front of mind for people, because it was a free-flowing sort of conversation, and a lot of random stuff came out that wouldn't normally have come out because it wouldn't have been on an agenda, and we connected the dots. So as well as emerging some interesting stuff on memory, we also built a sort of camaraderie, because what was created out of the conversation was a co-creation as opposed to somebody's agenda imposing it on someone else. I hope that's doing a bit of justice to your genius, Neil, but that's how I hold it in my head.
Thank you. You put it so much better than I could possibly have done. Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that I think I'm bringing. it's the stuff I'm talking about here. Maria said systems thinking, because a system is just something that you're affecting the system whilst being affected by it. People say, oh, this is what our team do, and as if it's an it, but I'm part of it, and I'm being affected as well as affecting it. So improv is definitely that. It's a VUCA, it's a social system where I didn't realize that I'm actually contributing, even if I'm sitting out and going, I don't like these meetings, I'm making a contribution. And also, Lynn, just the power of playfulness. Yes, exactly, Sarah. Playfulness gets us creative, gets us feeling psychologically safe. If it's playful, it's not jokes at that person's expense. It's playful, which is all about improv, where we fail all the time. We're vulnerable. We say stuff we didn't mean to say. We don't know where it's going to go. And all of the things that perhaps much of our Western discourse says you should know where you're going, you should have a plan, you should stick to it. Not saying you shouldn't sometimes, of course, but can you create that moment and those moments of playfulness? And I used to kind of be cheesed off when people said, oh, we're just going to have a laugh together. And I've come out after 25 years saying, if I've achieved nothing else, and Lynn's just said, you know, what might be possible, but if they just had a laugh together, what a great thing I have brought. I'm bringing this beautiful thing that's been around 100 years, just look differently, treat what people say as an offer. Oh, we have a laugh, and we're enjoying the not knowing.
Well, just jumping in there, because you know, this book holds lots of pieces of research on all kinds of aspects of improv and comedy. And a couple of things that I pulled out was a study from 2010 that's about laughter. And it was done in relation to aging. And after 8 weeks, where one group was allowed to laugh or encouraged to laugh or given opportunities to be put in front of somebody very funny or do funny things. And one group didn't have those experiences. The group that were laughing a lot more had less pain, less loneliness, more happiness, more life satisfaction. So the symptoms of aging were reduced considerably. And I hope I've got that right. And then also, you know, Neil writes about the chemistry of all that, which is, you know, why a chemistry geek like me, embodied chemistry, loves this book, because you've got to go in there and have a look, and all these research references are there. And of course, there's dopamine and endorphins. There's the diaphragms massaging the solar plexus. The neurotransmitters are all, you know, charging around when we laugh. It's a very powerful thing. And the other quote I wanted to bring out was from Lord Byron. I love this one that you've pulled out, Neil, which was, always laugh when you can. It's cheap cheap medicine. So, you know, that's a poet, Lord Byron. So I'm really going to encourage you to have a look at this, the book, because it's absolutely brilliant. Now, I know you want to speak, Leon. I just want to bring us to just to wrap up that last section. And I wanted to say that the R is, Kevin's amazing at this when we have our meetings, tracking what's been going on and making something feel like it's been heard and lighter as it comes back around again into the conversation. So I love that reincorporation. I think it's a real leadership skill, that, you know, it's not always about bringing it back for the humor, but the signaling is that you've listened deeply to what's happening, how the narrative is evolving, and you're able to bring it back round and give a sense of including the things that have all popped up and the connections are being made. And
absolutely. It's often used in stories where the character, the object, the words come back and they could unlock more meaning. And that we just love that narrative closure, that narrative consistency. Sitcoms, they call it a callback. I think our friends in NLP might call it nesting and looping, anything like that, which is we feel, oh, they've listened to what I said, of, oh, actually, it was there already. I don't know if Mark Mercer, you asked about my voice. I just love playing with my voice. So I know that it works well on stage to play different characters. And I like to stand up because I think your voice is an instrument. And I always tell people, if you're sitting down, your voice isn't quite as able to go into different places. And so I do enjoy my voice. I'm not classically trained, but I've spent years being in comedy clubs where you've got to keep your voice strong. Yes.
And the more you use it, the more you can find the range. And what what I love about you, Neil, is when you're talking about stuff, whatever it is, you're engaged. And it's that level of engagement, I think, that calls the voice to move here, there, and everywhere. And if you give it that challenge, the voice will follow, you know, and I see that in you. I love it.
And I actually, when I help people with presentation skills, they're going, hello, let me tell you about our new strategy. And they're bored.
Yeah.
Their voice says it. And then I say, well, tell me about, you know, what does it really mean? What could it look like? And they go, well, the other day, and their whole energy lifts. And I say, do that. Don't tell me spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Where's the energy? I look for the energy in their body and their voice quite often before I look for the text.
Yes.
Sometimes I say, just try and speak with a bit more energy. And then they begin to change what they say. If you see, it's called almost the opposite of what acting is. Acting is you're given a script, so we say, and then you have to justify it. Improv is you've got to play an emotion without knowing any words. You play it and you find the words.
Yes.
So it's kind of the opposite. And this is why some proper actors find it harder, because I've just got to be angry with a pen, or you've got to fall in love with a pen. Oh. And we know that there's joy in that. And I often say to people, find the energy. And where's the energy right now? Notice that. If there's no energy in that slide, get rid of that slide.
Yes. I mean, likewise, Neil, you know, as coaches, I'm hoping that this is, you know, in this sense, you know, every coach that's here is remembering many moments when you have said your energy dropped there when you said that, what happened, you know, and it's like, those are the dollars in our pockets. That's what kind of really crucial. Are we looking at shifts and changes in energies, and are we simply pointing out that happened and mirroring that back? And so it's wonderful the way you've described that. Listen, I'm going to move us on. Can I? What is your favorite improv game to play with companies and leaders, and why? And can we play it, please?
Yes, I do play this game first. We play yes and. We sometimes play yes but. There are other games we play as well, but this is kind of a basic one, which seems easy because you say one word at a time. I went to the shop. I bought some cheese, whatever. And of course, what's brilliant is it's very clear that we're improvising, that I didn't know what the word before me was going to be, and I don't know what the next word is. But when it comes to my word, I'm 100% in control, but I don't know where it might be taken. And again, this is the system. I've got to work with the system which I'm in, but I'm also contributing. And what's fun is very quickly we realize that somebody's got an idea ahead of time. They might even say two words because they daren't just say the. They would say the cheese. I can't let them come up with the word after the. And very quickly, you notice as well people going, and I decided to, rather than I killed, I shot, I loved, I licked. Active, energized words. And very often, it's a very clear way of showing how uneasy we are with being vulnerable. We do one word at a time. And one time I did it with somebody from the BBC, and this guy, executive producer of documentaries, said, oh, it's so frustrating. Just one word. Can we have two words? Okay, we do two. Oh, 2 words, not enough. Can we have 3? Oh, no. Oh, dear. Can't we want to get it right. And this is we want right. What is right? Okay. Well, let's tell a story we already know. Okay, good. Let's tell the story of Cinderella. Right. Okay. Cinderella. Da, da, da. And then we got to the bit where the stagecoach is transformed. And you know what the stagecoach was originally before the fairy godmother?
Was it a pumpkin?
It was a pumpkin. So
yeah.
Came to this woman and she said, and she couldn't think of the word pumpkin. Damn. Oh no. And she was feeling terrible, but she had to say, so she said turnip. And of course, turnip became the best offer ever. We really enjoyed turnip. We enjoyed the disruption. Some of us remembered pumpkin, but under that stress, she couldn't. But that mistake, that fallibility became an engine of real creativity, real collaboration. And it opened the door.
It also linguistically makes sense. Turn-ip. It's a kind of like a turning, a transformation, more than pumpkin. Of course,
because it was turning from a thing into a stagecoach. So I just remember as the need for structure, the need for certainty and lack of ambiguity, all the VUCA things. We don't want volatility, we don't want uncertainty, we don't want complexity, we want ambiguity. Hey, dude, it's already there. How do we embrace it? So we could have a go at this. We just say one word at a time. I reckon we could do with a couple of volunteers. Who would you like to take a volunteer, Claire, or I could just use you and Kevin? I don't know. How do you?
No, look, I'm think that there's going to be some folks here who'd be comfortable here. Sarah has already put up her hand. Maybe good, and I know Heather also does improv. So we've got
okay.
I also, the chat. So
Andrew,
I'm not volunteering you. You don't have to do it, Hella. But I just noted.
Okay, Andrew did put his hand up, but he may have.
And Andrew as well. Brilliant. Can we do it with those three?
Ordering coffee from a waiter. I don't know where he is. He's got a rather nice red background. Not quite as nice as mine. No pressure. There is no pressure. So is it Sarah?
So take yourselves off mute, Andrew and Heather and Sarah, and over to you, Neil.
So what we're going to do is just give yourself I'll give you the number, and we'll say the number. So Neil's 1, Sarah's 2, Heather is 3, Andrew's 4. Remember, so just say your number now quickly. 1,
3,
2,
3.
Okay, now in order. 1,
2, 3,
4.
Good. With that same energy and speed, we're going to try and create. We'll do a story, and if we have time, but actually just a proverb. A proverb like never eat cheese, always wear red, never kiss a frog, or something like that. Okay. And this is just an example of let's go without thinking. The pressure is off. If we say anything, we've won. Okay. So here's our little proverb. So in the same order as our number, always
cherish
cupcakes
and pandas.
There we go. Deep wisdom. Okay. Now what happened there was one of the offers one can give is to say that's the end. So for example, we could all do this with everyone. Are you ready to say deep wisdom? Put your hands like that. So deep wisdom. Okay. Because sometimes we crowdsource something very profound, like it's always cherish cupcakes. Now, Andrew, I should have got in quicker because I thought that could be the answer. That could be the end. We never know though. And then what did you do, Andrew? How many
I added the
words
word and in. I used 2 words.
You used 2 words, Andrew. What's going on? There was only one rule, and you said 2 words.
And that's me. I'm sorry. It was the red background.
But of course, we all had an idea because everyone put in chat after Sarah said cherish, what did you want to happen? Or what was in your head? And even Heather, I'll go to you while they're writing them in. What color cupcake was it?
shocking pink.
Shocking pink. There you go. Always cherish good. But what were you thinking? Let's have another go. Because it may be that somebody hates cupcakes and maybe they preferred pandas. But the joy of this is whoever's in the game, you're right. Follow the follower. We are all sharing responsibility. Let's have another go in the same order. So never
allow
people.
Time.
Did you say time or crime?
Time.
Never allow people
Never allow people
yes.
time. Never
Deep
allow
wisdom.
people
Don't allow
time.
people time. They'll just waste your time. Just get on with it. No, don't give people time.
Don't
Fool.
coach them. Come on.
Right, this time we're going to start with number 4. So Andrew, actually no, let's start with Heather. Heather, say if.
if
Coaches.
Are.
extraordinary,
Then
They.
Will.
succeed.
Deep wisdom. There we are. But I would say maybe all coaches just need to be ordinary. But look, I don't know if you could see Sarah. She did a very good thing of going like that. And that to me was saying she was thinking, what can I say that's good? Now, of course, Andrew's talking about coaches. So I was thinking, what do coaches do? We've got to get it right. I don't know. Can't say the wrong thing. And it's just interesting how I came in fairly quickly, boldly, not knowing where it'll go, because I've been here before. I know that it'll be okay-ish. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't need to think. I've actually calmed my thinking process down. It's become now I just blurt it out. And I know the process, the team will come up with something brilliant. Let's have another go with starting next time, shall we? With Sarah, just say always.
Always.
very
What was that one, Heather?
Heather, did you say bury as in
Bury,
bury?
as in inter, bury, B-U-R-Y.
Bury.
Okay, always bury.
Bones.
Deep wisdom. There we go. Always bury bones. Here we go. And here's another one. Because what I want you, thank you, all you're writing the right answer here. It could be everyone else, put in the chat what you think we should have said. Always bury your differences. Always bury your brother-in-law. Always bury the treasure. Just put in there, because what I'm focusing on here, always bury the hatchet. Yes, brilliant. And Susan, you seem to have the same surname as Andrew. What's going on there? But just what I love about here is that the sense here is that your story is different from my story. But actually, if we combine, we will become something bigger than the individual, and allowing that diversity to actually create the story which we've all committed to. Even if I had to bury my hatchet or put to one side my cheese because you said penguins or pandas. Okay, here we go. Off again. Never
Procrastinate.
Only
Succeed.
Oh, deep wisdom. Never procrastinate, only succeed. There we go. Deep, deep wisdom. Exactly. Okay, so just that's an example, Claire.
Yes.
And then we have more time. We'll tend to do a game. And actually, interestingly, Andrew said panda because I said it in the zoo. So I start with I went to the zoo, and Victoria had never eat shredded wheat. Now, this is great because I often do this internationally, and somebody will say, never eat shredded, and they're going, paper? We realize then, remember my E of lager is to explore assumptions. Most British people say shredded wheat. That's almost one word. Whereas non-British, shredded, the shredded paper. It's just one of those things that's a brilliant example of cultural assumptions. Now we have, that's a country one. Any team, any organization will have a whole bunch of acronyms and assumptions. We don't do that. That's what sales do. No, we're compliance. Oh, they're IT. All these unwritten ground rules. And so, always meander. What I love about this is that it shows how much we've already got a script in our head. So I say the zoo. And very quickly you realize somebody's got, and right now, if I said zoo, everyone write down what comes into your head. Put it in the chat, it would be great, because very quickly, look at that, brilliant, brilliant. Oh, look at that, all word Zoolander, great. You can see the diversity of that, zoology, and zoo bars. And some people might say, actually, London Zoo, or Singapore Zoo, or somebody once said, I don't like zoos, they're prisons for animals. And so I talk about Daniel Kahneman and System 1, System 2, but the assumptions we carry, we're not even aware of. So very quickly, when we do the day I went to the zoo, somebody's majoring on penguins. Somebody's saying, I don't want to see the penguins. I want to go to the giraffes. Actually, look at that. Birds. Victoria's saying birds. It's funny because I read that as billiards initially. I thought, zoo billiards, how exciting. Because I hadn't thought of it. So that was what I was delighted by. Zoolander, completely different. So it's one of those games that seems very simple, almost childlike. And quickly you realize people have a premise going, but then the pivot is, it's okay to say panda.
Yes,
Zoolander.
yes.
And what matters now is what the story is.
Yes.
Not a word, but what's the story? Where are we heading? What's at stake? And the delight when somebody says you didn't expect something. Oh, great. How can I work with that? Or sometimes even, they said exactly what I wanted. I'm happy.
Yes, yes.
The different
surprise, satisfaction, all those things. So notice everybody. So what's going on in your bodies? It was going on in your bodies over that last sort of 5 minutes as we've been playing those games. I'm imagining that some of the people that volunteered were feeling slightly in the hot seat sometimes, so there might be a little bit of cortisol. But apart from that, as well as that, what was the chemistry of some of the things that were happening? So this, what was lovely was these words were surfacing, and it felt like, gosh, there's so many words, and they come from all of us, and we're cooking up something here. And I felt this kind of, dopamine, the surprise, the excitement, the novelty, the level of novelty as we collaborated. So Susan's already going on the dopamine and the oxytocin. So what was going on, and what did it feel like in your body? Quick just a quick note in the chat would be great.
Lots
Would
of
be
things
great.
come out there. Trust, keep judge quiet. Yes, because often in improv, somebody says, you know, good morning, doctor. I'm not a doctor. We call that a block. And you try not to block, vulcanized. You try not to block somebody else, but often we block ourselves. And I would reckon that as coaches, we see a lot of our clients block themselves. We can see the energy. They know it's there, but they daren't say that what it is, because the consequences may be too unexpected, unsure. But often the block is within oneself. And a lot of the training one does with improvisers initially is to unblock their own process. Well,
funnily enough, that's what aren't we trying to basically help other people unblock their processes and keep ours unblocked in the process? So that's certainly a connection. Sorry, I cut you off there, Neil.
No, it's just one of the simple games we play is there's a box here, an imaginary box. It's full of things and you have to pull out. And after about 8, you can't think of anything, you know, cheese, trousers, Ferrari, debt, future, panda. And after a while, people going, I don't know what to say. And they go to rude words. And you kind of go, that's all right. You've got to the edge of your sort of conscious creativity. Let it flow now.
Yeah.
And then at some point you'll go, oh, I don't know, the Chief Justice wearing a pair of Blancmange trousers or something. Great. And you get to that place where you're not judging anymore.
Yeah.
Now, if you're chief executive of a financial services organization, that may not be the space you want to be in all the time.
Yes.
But when could you access that space?
Yes.
And how much are you giving away if you're not in that playful moment?
Yeah. I just would love, so I've got one last question for you, but I would love, before we go on to that last question, which would just be a very, you know, like why in a kind of series of 3 or 4 proverbs, why should we get better at telling stories? And that's for you, Neil. But while Neil's just sort of thinking about that, or maybe improvising towards it, or maybe taking a breath, what connections are you making to your coaching from what we've done with Neil? Just if there's anything you want to kind of get out and get into the chat, do that now. What connections are you making to your coaching? What's been particularly sort of interesting and made you change the way you felt or change some observations you have? And then we'll just move on to talking about story. And we've just got 5 minutes left in the whole session. And people are writing comments now because it takes a little bit more reflective thought, that question I've just asked there. It's not necessarily a kind of instant improv answer.
Some great stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people think drama, if they say to me, I don't have to pretend to be a tree. Well, I don't want you to be a tree. If you want to be, that's fine. But it's not about those lessons at school you might have had. I've got to pretend to be someone else. Although I'm playing with my voice, I don't ask people to act per se. And people say sometimes improv is about reacting rather than acting, although it is something that obviously we do on the stage. But you asked about story.
Yeah, let's finish on that. Lovely.
The realization I come to is that people come and see a show. Yes, we do funny. Yes, there are joke moments and there are funny moments. But actually, after a while, they're looking for story. We do a scene where there's some kind of resolution, where there's something at stake. We need to know that the prince and the princess may or may not get together. The dragon will be vanquished. The treasure will be found. And also, as somebody once said to me, also, not only is the story in the, as it were, on the stage, which we do a longer piece in the second half where we do a musical story and we want them to win. And sometimes, you know, there's a lesson to be learned because they don't win. There's been sadness, there's been misconnection, and that's what life may be like. But there's a story, like many stories have a down ending. But actually somebody said you're watching us on the stage telling stories, but also it's the story of 6 people working together. You get to know us as individuals. We reincorporate from previous scenes, even from earlier moments, even from what the audience said a lot. There's even the story of that bloke in the front row who keeps saying weird things, or that person who a while ago said their offer was carrot or something, and oh, it's the carrot person, something like that. So there's narrative is there all the time.
Why is narrative in a nutshell so important to human beings? Why are stories so important?
Agency, purpose, resolution, closure. Story means I start somewhere. I have some power to influence the outside world, but not ultimate power. I need to know, I could go left, I could go right. And from that agency comes learning, and sometimes failure. And sometimes I step into something I didn't know, but I had to do it because I had a bigger purpose. And towards the end, I begin to think, that's what I've learned. So Pixar, for example, their story spine is borrowed from improv, improvised stories, which is basically every day, then one day, then one day, because of that, because of that, because of that. And then finally, the final scene is now every day. So almost there's a mirror, the first scene, the last scene, and your hero, your heroine, your protagonist has learned something. They've become a grown-up, or they've learned wisdom, or they've vanquished the bad. They've shed their innocence.
Lovely.
They've come through something that we saw them through, and that mirror neurons you might know about as well. There's lots of
stuff there
behind
Listen, just aware of time, what a wonderful sort of finisher piece, a real takeaway there. Agency, purpose, the decisions that you make along the way, and the learning as you come out. There are plenty of story models for how to tell stories, but I just love the simplicity of that and how you described it. There's so much more that we could say on this topic. What Neil was describing then when he talked about the second half was the show at the Comedy Store, which is on a Sunday night. And when you're passing through London, or if you've got friends in London and they haven't been, you must go. These if it's 6 actors on stage, they're creating on the spot a piece of kind of musical theatre drama that they are it's just evolving in front of your eyes. It's incredibly exciting. So I thoroughly recommend the Comedy Store. You really must buy this book. You will get so much from it. If you're a facilitator and a coach, you'll get so much from it. And so from me to you, Neil, what a joy, what a fantastic way. After feeling a bit like this morning, to be honest, and we did a little prep beforehand, and then really you've warmed us up and been absolutely delightful to listen to. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for putting stuff that I talk about. I'm want to find out more about your PhD. Thank you to my volunteers, and also, by the way, I'm going to go and have a cup of tea and a lie down now. I reckon.
Kevin, can we go to you to
lie down? Very good idea. Yeah, thank you, Neil. Thank you, Claire. I just know all of you are chomping at the bit now to get out to your clients and start playing games. And one of the purposes of the physical intelligence work and the Institute is not only give you tools and techniques, but give you the language and the science to go and talk about some of these things. So Neil rather beautifully and eloquently always does manage to give the intellectualization of the work. Obviously, there's nothing better than seeing it in person. So please go over and over again. No 2 shows are the same. I can't remember how many times I've been. But same with our work at the Physical Intelligence Institute, whether we're working with improvisation, comedy, story, or the body, we're looking to be able to understand and explain and articulate what these things are actually doing. So I hope you had a good time, you learned some stuff, and you've got a better vocabulary and more confidence to go and try these things. And make sure you turn up to the Comedy School. I mean, buy the book. You'll never see the show in the same light again. That's all I can say. So thank you for all coming.
Yeah, it's great to see so many of our community here, and also people I know are considering joining us for the Coaching with Physical Intelligence course, or you've already signed up, which is fantastic. So or your graduates already. So really great to feel this whole work build together, and the narrative that we're creating around the essential nature of the body, the physical intelligence. So with that, we'll let you go. Have a wonderful rest of day. Thank you so much, Neil. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Victoria, and the volunteers. Super.